Oh dear, is this recording? Hello Tim, well I just wanted to record a chess game because I'm trying to beat that scouse cunt, Julian.
Alright there lad, how you doing? Here's a quick game for you. This is Alekhine against Saemisch. I won't mess around with too much, I'll just get to the nitty gritty. It's a Sicilian, so it'll be quite educative for you, or educational. And I'll just get straight into it. So e4, c5, knight f3, classical Sicilian, knight c6, and Alekhine plays bishop e2. It looks a bit passive, but he wants to get castled and get his pieces out before he actually starts action in the centre. So now we get pawn to e6, which allows the bishop and the queen to be developed, and is fighting for d5. So d5, keep that in mind, bear that in mind, that's going to be an important square. And now castle, d6. Now we're fighting for the centre, and after pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, Alekhine's got a nicely developed position. He's got a centrally posed knight, which is eyeing up squares, b5, as well as an exchange on c6. And something about it looks a bit strange, just having one central pawn, and black's got two pawns in the centre, but white's definitely ahead in development. After knight to f6, the normal move that most of us might just play automatically would be knight to c3 to defend the pawn. The pawn is now attacked by the knight on f6, but sorry, I'm just conscious that I'm going. It's very difficult to do. Fuck you! It's difficult to do these things without going. So the bishop on e2 is now placed, or it's transferred. Amateurs say pieces are developed or moved. Professionals, grandmasters, transfer their pieces. So bishop to f3 defends the pawn, and it also allows Alekhine to play his c pawn to c4. This is the main reason for this move. He wants to get the c2 pawn to c4, where in tandem with the e4 pawn they will both exert a pressure on the d5 square. It does encourage black's knight somewhat to come to e5 to attack and to exchange that bishop, but if he does that, white will recapture with the queen, and that will maybe compensate him with a tempo or two. So after this move, we do in fact get the knight to e5. Alekhine commits to his double pawn consolidation in the centre. This is actually called a Maroczy bind, after the great player Geza Maroczy. So now it's a pincer movement against the d5 square. Knight takes, queen takes. The queen is now developed, and it's reminiscent of Morphy, the classic opera game where his queen is developed after the bishop takes on f3. Black carries on with development because he is under development now. That knight already, there are certain moves that look nice already. The knight to b5, and aesthetically, though practically, knight to f5 looks interesting, coming here to attack the queen, but it's impossible as of yet, but it still looks attractive. Okay, so now we carry on with development. That knight is free to come to c3 now because the pawn has already been moved. After castling, well, now white is telegraphing somewhat his intention. He's developed a pawn which overprotects, or protects, the c4 pawn, and now he's preparing to put his bishop on the a1 h8 diagonal, where it will have fantastic scope against the enemy's king. So black sees this, and he's not really happy just to play a passive game and leave a powerful bishop like that uncontested. This is why he now plays knight to d7. Oh, sorry, that was a bit of a slip up. Ignore that. Wipe that from your mind. So now, powerful bishop there, or at least this is why I think he makes this move. So he moves. I mean, what other good moves could he do at this point? Bishop d7, just to develop a move. But very often, you know, it's easy to get carried away, and he doesn't want to have the pair, the devilish pair of bishop and queen attacking his g7 pawn. In hindsight, bishop d7 probably would be a lot better. So now, knight to d7. It's a strange move to bring a piece back, and he's blocking in his bishop, which in turn blocks in his rook. So it's a convoluted move. Now the bishop moves, his bishop moves, so they're eyeing each other up. And now if we go back just a little bit, after this move, the pawn, the d6 pawn, can you see it, is undefended, and Alekhine would be somewhat justified to play, I'll go through the variation with you, knight to here, attacking the pawn. It's an undefended pawn, it's a nice place to put the knight, why not play that? But then that's gonna have a cause and effect, because now there's no really nice way to defend that, so it's going to cause black to push the pawn, and then we're going to get into concrete variations. Pawn takes pawn, if pawn takes, queen takes, and this is all pretty good for white, but he might have wanted better, and very often players they want to steer the game into their own course, or they don't want to give counterplay to their opponent. So this could explain why he doesn't just jump in with his knight there, as one of us might, and the computer might want to do that either. Also, he consolidates his position with the very mature rook to d1, and that in fact is the computer's choice, it's Fritz's choice. I'm not running an engine at the moment, but I might get the engine out in a little bit. After this, he stops any hanky-panky with the knight coming into b5. And I think Alekhine, probably another reason he didn't play knight there, he's got other intentions for that knight. He doesn't want his daughter just marrying any old pikey. He's got you know, he wants to move up into the courts, you know, he wants to move up the hierarchy. So she's got a destiny, this knight's got a destiny planned out now. So that's very interesting, I think, that this pawn was undefended. He stops the immediate potential attack, but now Alekhine comes out with another attack on it. So I find that quite a nice move. Now we get queen to c7. For some time, white has been wanting to move his f pawn to f4, his f2 pawn to f4. And that's part of moving his queen there. Now, he doesn't want to do it immediately because there's a potential for the queen, black queen, to play to c5, pinning the rook, and then after e5. So say for example, if the pawn, I don't think it's a real threat, but if the pawn is moved, there's now a potential for queen to here. That knight is it's attacked twice now. I'll just put the engine on and see what I think about that. Yeah, so it looks a bit messy to me. After e5, pawn takes, Okay, knight to e4. Queen back to e7. Knight takes check. Queen takes. Pawn takes. No, it's not bad. It's one of those things that's not really bad, but it's not what Alekhine wanted, and those clearing of the pawns. I mean, even though it's still a playable position, it's a completely different type of position that occurs in the game. So Alekhine's looking for his own kind of action. He knows what he wants. He's bought the champagne, and he's got his bit of beak, and he wants the girl to do what he wants. He wants her to go and put the suspenders on and the high heels and that. So he's not happy just to have a cup of cocoa and read a book. So here we go. First, the prophylactic moves his king, and this is typical of all great players, especially Kasparov. Kasparov always looks for king safety, either moving a pawn or moving his king before starting on an attack. Okay, so now f4 is ready, and he might be able to play an e5 or something. I don't want to get too bogged down in possibilities. There now follows rook to d8, and now if you look at that knight move, the knight that was placed on d7 is still exerting an influence in that it's hemming in. Well, I don't know if that's the right word to hem in. It's hemming in. The c8 bishop is trapped, and because that can't come out, it's blocking in the rook as well. It's like a traffic jam. Okay, so now we get f4, and now the action starts, and it's starting to get exciting now. This is slow. This is slow because of the knight on d7. He needs to get his bishop out, and really he should be playing moves like knight to c5 or something for activity, or even h5, but he doesn't see the storm ahead. Now we get pawn moves, allowing space for the b7 bishop. But look, let's have a quick look at this complex of squares now, because this might become important later on, that these have been weakened, and also we have these two pawns, the Maroczy pawns, still exerting an influence over d5, and later on, that square, it might become ripened, and it's going to be a nice place for the c3 knight. So both of those knights have got a job in mind. He's not just going to play them reactively as we often do in the game. He's got a thought out, logical plan of where they're going to go. Now, what did I say earlier on about knight to f5 being a nice move? Aesthetically, there's something appeals to me about that move, and I often do see moves such as that, but I can never back it up with concrete analysis. Now you get the computer likes these moves. These are not Alekhine's moves. These are better than Alekhine's moves. Knight to f5. It would be a completely different game if that happened. Let's just see what happens if he plays pawn takes pawn. You'd get the knight in there, and best move now, if you can see this has opened up all kinds of attacks now, because that bishop, that knight, that's a line clearance attack against the bishop on f6. So if that bishop, the threat now is, for example, let me just make any move just to show you what the threat is, because the knight and that bishop and the queen all in tandem exert a fantastic influence. Now it's possible where you can just get knight takes queen, but I don't want to look at that. I want to look more at this. If you get knight takes, bishop takes, bishop takes, g6, it's going to be hard to stop a mate coming up, isn't it? Going to be queen to f8. Well, you've also got this as well. Oh, There's going to be some tasty stuff going on there. But so that was one possibility, but that didn't happen. I'm not sure why he wouldn't have seen that move. But instead he plays f5. This is the actual move that Alekhine played. And now you can see, if the f pawn takes, if black plays e takes f, then that d5 square will become available for occupation by the c3 knights, and that will be attacking the queen and the bishop. Now Saemisch comes up with a nice move here, which very often happens to me. I play something which I think is good with a lot of activity, and then you get the reply that goes, oh no, and you think everything you've done was wrong. But Alekhine, he could calculate, sometimes he calculated variations 20 moves long. He was a real obsessive calculator. So now Saemisch did play the move bishop e5, and that seems to put a spanner in the works, and you go, oh my god. So your queen is attacked. What do you do? I'll give you 20 seconds, Tim, to come up with the right answer. I'll give you a slow 20 seconds. What do you think Alekhine does? Can you see the move that Alekhine actually made? 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Make the fucking move! Okay, can you see it? Did you see the move that he made? Okay, very counterintuitive move. Have you had long enough? Any guesses? No, that's not right. No, that would be no good. No. What he actually does is pawn takes pawn. Double exclamation mark. It's a good move. Knight to f5 earlier would have been a lot better, I think, if this engine is accurate. So he's allowing his queen to be taken, and Saemisch didn't disappoint. He takes the queen, and so let's try and see what the idea that Alekhine actually had. Now he takes pawn takes, and look at that. It's a beautiful position, isn't it? The f rook, the f file is open, and all he needs is another piece on that f8 square. The f8 square is covered enough for the moment by the rook and the knight. The knight actually that I chastised is actually doing a good job there at the moment, but it has to stay there to do this. So he moves away. He could move to f8, and let's see. Let's see what happens if he does that. It's going to be game over before that. It'll be even worse, because you get knight to e6, threatening queen, threatening check, well, given check, threatening queen, and that's just a lot worse anyway. So let's see what he actually did in the game. King goes to h8, and now you get the beautiful move, knight d5. See how long and enduring the influence of those two pawns were on that d5 square. Okay, now I think he actually resigned at this point. So this is a famous instance of someone resigning, and he was right to resign, because in another 10 moves he's mated or something. So he actually resigned and walked out. I think he might have walked out of the hall and he didn't come back, something like that. So, but we'll look at the best. So this is actually the end position, but if he were to have carried on, the computer has given me a few variations, but I'll go with this one. I'll go with queen to a7. And remember what I said about those light square complexes. Now you get knight c6. And so look, he's attacking this is attacked, this is attacked, and this is still attacked. And this pawn that was weak before is still weak. For subsequent rook takes. So with best play, computer likes, well, if he tries to get the queen out, that's just going to be horrendous because it will lead to this. The knight now has to, it's imperative that the knight play to this is not working, to F. Oh, my computer's frozen. Damn. Okay, the knight has to play there, otherwise it's knight, it's game over. And then you're going to win the queen anyway. So the material loss is going to be horrendous. So at this point, computer thinks this is the best move. The f8 square's got to be covered, so the bishop's coming up there to e7, via e7 to cover f8, I do believe. And then you get g3. Oh, well, you could snap off the queen now actually, or just play g3 and then bishop here with either h4 or knight takes now. Knight takes, rook takes, h4, bishop goes to h6, and knight takes b6. That knight can't be taken, so it has to come back. And now knight takes, rook takes. This is a nice variation, and rook takes, and it's just winning. It's nearly 3 points ahead according to the computer, and just with good technique you'll do well there. But so in conclusion, I know it's a bit murky at the end there, but that was the final position. He just resigned. I mean, the threats look overwhelming, and even though he's a queen down, Alekhine was a queen down, he's forced a winning position. So should we have a quick look through that in recap and summary? Fighting for the centre in the opening and getting the king to you always aspire to do, or to be. He doesn't play moves by rote, but he's inventive. He plays, you know, is breaking one of the canonical, is that the right word? Canonical idioms of chess, to not move a piece twice before all the other pieces are developed. But he's seen that knight will want to come to e5, and he's prepared to swap that off so that he can get 2 pawns, the Maroczy bind on that d5 square. If you're playing black, you never want to allow that to happen. Apparently that's what they say. That's one of the big things in the Sicilian. You never want to allow your opponent to have those 2 pawns controlling the d5 square. And then it seems like plain sailing for Alekhine from here. He's putting a bishop, which will have a great influence on that a1 to h8 diagonal. That's a dubious move, isn't it? Knight to d7. And he resists just playing reactive chess with the computer. Actually does like knight to b5, but it prefers Alekhine's move, rook at a to d1, and then from here the queen attacking the undefended pawn. That pawn has to be defended. Prophylactic before initiating any offensive action. Can we castigate that move? He could play a g6 now, or knight to e5 already. Knight to e5 might be better. So there doesn't seem to be any clear reason as to why he's playing that, except he just wants to get his pieces out. Now we get the f4. Creating weaknesses, organic weaknesses in his structure. And now Alekhine misses the beautiful modern move knight to f5. And just to have a quick look to see why that move is so good, the computer at this point would really like a g6, just chasing it away. And I think I've played I played a game with Agent that was very similar to this. I put my knight on h6, but the computer just likes the move knight d6, and you're a pawn ahead with a very nice position. So, and if he were to have taken, well, this is all just supposition, if that were to be taken, then just jam a knight in on d5, just jam it in there, and the best he can hope for now, if he tries to escape his queen with queen to c5, for example, then you will get check. If knight takes, bishop takes, and now that pawn is pinned, so they will follow g6, queen goes to g5, and there's a little bit horrible in it for black. Okay, so I think that will suffice now. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope there was something interesting. Leave me some comments and suggestions. I know it feels a little bit unfulfilling, doesn't it, because he resigned at this point, but you think it's full of possibility. But it's after that, knight to d5, resignation ensued. Okay, thank you very much. Take care.